theyeshiva.net.
So we began a Maaamar of the Baal HaYartzai, the Baal HaYilula, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he said on Shabbos Parshas Korach, Gimel Tammuz, which is today Gimel Tammuz, Tovshin Chai, 1958. Began on the words in Tehillim, Hasom Nafsheinu Bachayim v'loi nosan lamoit ragleinu. He placed our soul in life and did not allow our legs to falter. He asked a few questions about that pasuk, actually one question, and then went on to discuss Korach. We're still going to get back to the Hasom Nafsheinu Bachayim. And began focusing on the idea that Vayikach Korach took. What did he take? So the Targum says, the Onkelos says, well, Vayikach he took. What did he take? He didn't take, he fought. He staged a revolt. So Rashi says, he took himself away. He separated himself from the collective unity created by Moshe, the Jewish leader, Aaron, the high priest. Vayikach, he took himself away. Rashi brings the translation of the Onkelos, Targum Onkelos. Vayikach Korach, v'ispeleg Korach. Usually Vayikach is v'nosiv. You remember from Shnai Mikra v'echa Targum? Yeah, when you read the Targum Onkelos is something that is very, very, it's considered one of the most sacred and authoritative translations of Chumash. Every Friday we do, or Shabbos, do Shnai Mikra v'echa Targum. Vayikach Korach is usually, Vayikach is v'nosiv in Aramaic. V'nosiv is he took here. Doesn't say he took it. It's v'ispele Korach. Because what did he take? He split himself. He split himself away. He severed the cords between him and the divine prophet and messenger, Moshe Rabbeinu. On this, the Noam Elimelech says that v'ispele Korach, he compares it to what? What happened on Monday. V'hi rakia mavdil bein mayim l'mayim. Hashem said on the first Monday of creation that the firmament should separate between the water and the water. On Sunday, it was all water. On Monday, there is now a split in the water. There's the water above the rakia, the firmament, and there's the water under the rakia, the firmament. That happens on Monday. So the Noam Elimelech connects the two. The V'ispelik is connected to that first plukta, to that first split, that first machlokes in the water, which happened on the second day of creation on Monday. That's what the Noam Elimelech says. And he gives a whole explanation there, the Noam Elimelech. The Rebbe doesn't quote the rest of the explanation. Oh, thank you. But the Noam Elimelech, the Rebbe Melech, Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk, gives a whole explanation, a very beautiful explanation. It's not for now, it's a whole mahalach over there, the Noam Elimelech. The Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek in Ur HaTorah, takes this Noam Elimelech and develops it. And he says it really originates in the Zohar, because the Zohar says that the split in the water is the split between Smoil and Yamin. Machloikes Smola b'Yaminah. It's the disputation, the dichotomy, the chalukah, the dichotomy between the left and the right. Left-oriented energy and right-oriented energy, which in Kabbalah is called chesed, loving kindness, benevolence, and gvura, which is strength, discipline, and boundaries. And that was the machloikas of Korach versus Aaron. Korach represents gvura. The Leviim in Kabbalah are associated with gvura. The Koyanim are associated with chesed. We even have a pasuk for this, remember? Tumecha ve'urecha le'ish chasidecha. By Birchas Koyanim they say, Shekadeh Shalom Toisav Shalayim v'tzivana levarechas Amma Yisrael be'ahava. It's the only blessing where you put in the word with love. You don't say Shekadeh Shalom Toisav v'tzivana lohaniach tefillin be'ahava. Some people say ve'erastichli. You don't say Shekadeh Shalom Toisav v'tzivana les'atev b'tzitzis be'ahava. L'kvoya mezuzah ba'ava. You should all do it with love. You should put a mezuzah on your door with love, and put on tefillin with love, and put on a talis with love. By Birchas Koyanim, it's in the blessing, because it's essential. It's not just a great thing you should love. Not only that, there's halacha in Shulchan Aruch, I think in Kuf Chav Ches, Hilchas Birchas Kayanim, that a Kayan who doesn't like somebody in the community, you shouldn't do Birchas Kayanim. But Ahava is important. So the Kayan is associated with Chesed. Takavart from the Rebbe, he once said, beautiful vart, why is it that Tumas Mitzayra is Tali B'Kayan? The only one who could look at a Mitzayra, somebody who's a leper, and say, you're Tameh, is only a Kayan. You know that. You can have Moshe Rabbeinu himself, you can have the greatest Talmid Chacham in history. And he goes and he looks at the symptoms. The guy has a white patch in the skin, size of a gris. The hair turned from black to white. Perfect Mitzayra, all the symptoms. You don't even have to be a rocket scientist. Sometimes you do, but not always. And this great Talmid Chacham, the Gaon of the generation, says, you're Tameh. He's not Tameh. He's not Tameh. You need a Kayan. Only a Kayan is allowed to come and say that these symptoms declare you Tameh. And the Rebbe asks, what's the logic? This is not like a bracha that he's giving. It's almost a scientific diagnosis. If you know the halachas of tsaras, and you know the symptoms, and you know how to study the symptoms, so you could know if he's Tameh or Tar. What's it to do with being a Kayan or not being a Kayan? Now, what happens if the Kayan in town, this is the halacha, what if the Kayan is an Amaretz? He's an ignoramus. He doesn't know the halachas. What is he supposed to do? Somebody is a leper, and they call out the Kayan, Eveisnish. So you know what the halacha is? He has to bring a Talmid Chacham. He has to bring the great scholar. The great scholar has to tell him if the symptoms conform to the symptoms in Torah for Mitzayra, and if yes, he tells the Kayan, you could say Tameh. And the Kayan says Tameh, the guy is Tameh. It seems strange. It would be like somebody has certain symptoms, they're not sure if it's a particular illness or not an illness, so they go to the doctor, they go to the great doctor, the great expert, diagnostician, he's really good at it. And sorry, I can't tell you if you're sick or not, I can't. I could tell a child who's a Kayan, even a child, he's a Kayan, and he's going to tell you. What's the Havana? The Mefarshim asked the question. The Meshech Chachma, Meir Simcha Kayan, has a whole explanation. So the Rebbe once said, Gewaldige Wort. So Mekutei Sichis Chelik Chav Zayin Parshas Mitzayr, Parshas Tazria. But the Rebbe said it, Tovshin Mandalat, 1983, 1984, Shabbos told us, I think. He said that Tzaras is considered one of the most stringent impurities in Judaism, because it's the only impurity where the halacha is Badad Yeshiv Mechutz Lamachana Mashava. You have to be quarantined, and not quarantined with your family. Really quarantined, alone, Mechutz Lamachana, to go outside of the camp. Even Tumas Meis, somebody who touches a corpse, it's a very serious impurity. But he remains within the camp, remains within the Jewish people. He can't go into Machane Shechina, but he's fine. There's other tumas. The only tumah where you completely, so to speak, are excluded from Machane Yisrael, from the Jewish collective community, is Mitzayra until the person heals. And then the person comes back in, and there's the process of cleansing discussed in Parshas Mitzayra. The Rebbe said the only one that the Rebbeinu Shalom entrusts to be able to give such a diagnosis and a verdict on a Jew is somebody whose soul vibrates with love. You can be the greatest, most brilliant diagnostician and scholar and Talmid Chacham in the world. But if you're not filled with empathy, with caring, with Ava, Levarich es Ama Yisrael ba'ava, if you don't see your mission as blessing the Jewish people, that's the mission of the Kayan, then you're not in the position of expelling him or her from Machane Yisrael. We cannot trust you, because if your heart is not saturated with infinite love, this diagnosis and this verdict is not accepted by the Torah. The Rebbe said, and if it's not accepted, it means it's wrong. So if I say you're a Mitzayda and I'm not a Kayan, so then what happens? I'm saying something that's not true, because the Torah never gave me a right to say it. So then I'm being Moitzi Shemra. So the Rebbe said, so who's the Mitzayra? I'm the Mitzayra. Mitzayra, the Gemara says in Erkin, is Moitzi Mitzayra, Moitzi Ra, Moitzi Shemra. I become the one who's guilty of what I'm blaming the other person. And he said, when such a person gives a verdict, you know that he won't go to sleep until he does everything he can to help the person recover and recuperate and sober up and be able to be brought back as soon as possible. Of course, this is true physically in terms of the halachas of Mitzvah, but it's a concept in life. I once said, before you throw somebody out of a school, before you expel somebody from yeshiva, before you make the conditions impossible for them to stay, make sure you're a kohen. Make sure you love that child like your own child. If you don't love that child like your own child, if you're not going to have a struggle falling asleep because this child is out in the street, then you're the one who should be expelled, not the child. So the kohen represents chesed. Korach comes from the Levi, represents Gevura. The machloikus of Korach versus Aaron is the machloikus of Gevura against Chesed. What does that mean? The Maaamar is going to explain what that means. What's the fight between Gevura and Chesed? The right side, the left side. But that's what the Zohar says. It says that Tzemach Tzedek. That's the connection the Noam Elimelech is making. It's not Stamapsa connection. Because that split on day 2 was the split between Smoil and Yemin, Chesed and Gvura. And that was the split between Korach and Aaron. So indeed, V'Ispale Korach is a continuity. It's a continuation of the Rebbeinu Shalom split of day 2. Which means, the Rebbe says, it's not just that the Noam Elimelech meant that every machloikus is rooted in the first machloikus. It says in Medrash, on day 2 it doesn't say Kitoiv. The only day where it doesn't say Hashem saw, it's good. Every day of creation, it says Hashem saw and it was good. The only day that it says it wasn't good was when Monday doesn't say Kitoiv is Monday. Fascinating. Why? So what does the Medrash Rabbah answer? Gevaldik answer. Because boy nivras machloikus. Machloikus is not good. Now this is a funny thing that Rebbe is going to address in the Maaamar. Who made this machloikus? Who made the machloikus of Monday? You and me? The board in the shul? Who made the machloikus? The community? Some rabble-rouser? Who made the machloikus? The Rebbeinu Shalom. So you make the machloikus, and then you say, oh, it's not a good day. No, so don't make a machloikus. It'll be a good day. A good to Shaila Reb Shalom. The Eibishter macht a machloikus, and then he says, by the way, it's not a good day. No, so stop the machloikus. It'll be a good day. You did it. Nobody else did it. Who made the machloikus on Monday? There were no people. Adam was created on Friday, and even then there couldn't be a machloikus yet because he was only one person. Okay, then he got split into Adam and Chava. There could be machloikus, but Monday is Hashem. He splits the water, that's machloikus. He creates the machloikus, and then he says, by the way, it's not a good day. Nish good. No kitoiv on Monday. So what do we see from this medrash? All machloikus comes back to the Monday of creation, which is a very profound idea, because what it means is that every fight you see in the world, every fight you see in your family, Chalila, every fight you see in yourself, every fight you see in your company, in your community, in your organization, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your country, the United States of America. Every machloikas there is, big and small, vicious and benign, is rooted in the first machloikas, the first dispute. And what is that? The split of Monday. Sheboy nivras machloikas. Now, we have to understand what all this means. These are what we call the props that are building up the foundation of the Maaamar that the Rebbe will explore and delve into. So Korach's machloikus is certainly rooted in the first machloikus of creation of Monday. If any machloikus is rooted, there's certainly the machloikus of Korach, which was so loaded and so potent and so intense and had such catastrophic consequences. But the Rebbe says that's only one aspect of the explanation. It's much deeper. It's not just every machloikus is rooted in the first machloikus. It's that the theme of the machloikus, the individual issue that this machloikus was bringing up, is also connected to day 2, because the day 2 is the split between Chesed and Gvura, the higher water and the lower water, and that was the same machloikus perpetuated by Korach, meaning Korach was perpetuating day 2 of creation. which of course leaves us wanting. Korach was perpetuating the fight that the Ribbono Shel Olam made. So what do you want from Korach? So he's a good man. He's perpetuating what God did on the second day of creation. So it was still very good. He's continuing the cycle that Hashem made. So what do you want from Korach? What's the big deal? It's a wonderful thing. Hashem made the machlokes, so somehow there's something good about it. But then we say, no, it's not good. And Korach is perpetuating it. Is it good? Is it not good? If Hashem did it, it has to be good. When Korach does it, it becomes evil. And we see that even when Hashem does it, he's not going to say on it the word kitov. Interesting things, interesting ideas. Of course, this is all an invitation to be able to go deeper into the pnimius, into the neshama, into the soul of the story. Of course, he added as well that the two explanations are very much interconnected, because it's gvura that allows for machlokes. There's a reason machlokes happen on Monday. Gvura is what allows for machlokes, because gvura is always about boundaries. There's you and there's me. If there's you and there's me, there can be peace. There can also be a disagreement. What's machlokes? Machlokes means we have two different perspectives. Whenever there is space, there are boundaries. In Hebrew, we call it yesh gvulot. Yesh gvulot. There's borders, there's space, there's me, and there's you. We can get along. We can also have machlokes. If there's all oneness, if there's only one person, there's no machlokes. Unless that person himself is not one person, is a split personality, then there's no machlokes inside of me as well. You know that old line, right? What's the definition of chutzpah? You come to the therapist, you come to the Bezriel because you have a split personality, and then you want a group discount. So sometimes you have the group inside of yourself. Machlokes begins with gvura. So by Korach wanting that gvura should prevail over chesed, that is the same idea of wanting machlokes to have real substance and legitimacy. Because machlokes comes from gvura. But then the question the Rebbe asks is, Korach was a pikeach. He was a wise man. You have to say that there was some depth to his argument. If not, the Chazal would not call him a pikeach. They say he was a shaitan. He's a fool. They say he was a pikeach. That means there was a serious error here. There was an error that was rooted in some idealistic interpretation of life. So I can understand a machlokes, what should be more important, chesed or gvura? That's a legitimate machlokes. It's a machlokes ad hayom hazeh. But what's the logic that machlokes should suddenly be idealized? Machlokes, according to this explanation, that Korach wanted machlokes. That's what the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, ein machzikin b'machlokes. And whoever holds onto a machlokes becomes like Korach. He transgresses the sin v'lo yeh kekorach v'chados. Any machlokes, even if it's a machlokes about renovation, even if it's a machlokes about where we're going for Pesach. Well, not this year. Any machlokes, nothing to do with Korach. Any machlokes is rooted in Korach's machlokes. What's the connection? We're fighting about something else. The answer is because Korach's nekuda is machlokes. Because making gvura more powerful than a chesed, that is connected to machlokes. But then what would be the havamina? What would be the logic? What would be the sophisticated explanation for Korach's pikchus, for Korach's wisdom to make machlokes a derech in avodas Hashem? The last question that the Rebbe addressed is the word Korach itself represents machlokes. It says Korach comes from the word, same word like Kerach. The Navi in Yecheskel, the vision of Yecheskel says he saw a heaven, Rakia, Ke'en HaKerach HaNoyer, like the awesome ice. So Korach itself represents already the Rakia, even without Vayikach Korach. Also, Korach comes from the word Kireach. Korach is Korach, Kerach, Kireach. Kerach is ice, which the Yecheskel sees in his vision that the heaven looks like ice. So that's already the Rakia Hamavdil of the Monday. But also Korach comes with Kireach, which means a bald spot. We spoke about Karachas HaKerem. Whenever there's a clearing in a vineyard, like you have a vineyard and then many of the vines are uprooted and you have a bald spot, an open clearing in the vineyard, it's called Karachas HaKerem. Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha, HaKireach Hazeh, bald. Loisasu Korcha, right? You're not allowed to pull out the Amorim when they would grieve. They would make bald spots. They would tear out their hair as a sign of grieving. So the Torah prohibits that. That's all the concept of Korach, which is what Machlokes is. Machlokes is you create a space, a gulf between two people, between two families, within a family. So Korach itself, the name is associated already with the split. But here we're saying something else. The Vayikach Korach is this Ve'ispelei Korach. So that means there's two phases here. There's phase one and then there's the Vayikach. What is the Hisafa Vayikach over Korach himself? Korach himself is already part of this, which of course, I hope you realize how this question is really the vista to the answer. You see why? Because this means there's Korach himself, his name, which he didn't choose. He could blame his father or his mother. He didn't choose that name, Korach. It's an interesting name to name a child, right? Ice and a bald spot, Korach. And then there is Vayikach Korach, what he did with his name. Two very separate things. And this is going to open up the shar, the vista, to the Lubavitcher Rebbe's explanation in this whole sugya, in this whole theme. A name is not bad. Korach is not bad. Korach is Korach. It's a certain reality. It's a certain identity. How you deal with it, how you interpret it, how you apply it, what you do with it, that's where everything changes. It's the story that you associate with the reality that changes everything. And those of you who are psychologists and therapists know how important this theme is in life. The reality is the reality. It's the significance I attach to the reality. L'moshel, I have an instinct to do something or to say something or to think something. That's a fact. I'm not delusional, it's a fact. The significance I attach to it, the story I associate with it, that makes your day or breaks the day. There's Korach, and then there's Vayikach Korach, what he did with Korach. Siv Gimel. V'yuvon ze bahakdim hayadua b'inyin rakia hamavdal b'mayim l'mayim. All of this will be understood by prefacing what is the concept of rakia hamavdal b'mayim l'mayim. We remember again on the first day of creation, everything was water. V'ruach Elokim rachefes al pnei hamayim, and Hashem creates light. Vayomer Elokim yiyor vayiyor. What happens on Monday? Vayomer Elokim, there should be a rakia. And this rakia should be mavdil bein mayim l'mayim. Should segregate, should create a segregation of machlokes in the water. What is the concept? What is this? What does it mean? So spiritually, it means as follows. The mayim hem tainug. Mayim is associated with pleasure. Water is associated with pleasure. On many levels. I think it's also something we all know in our own experience. When people go to the water, the sight of the water, the smell of the water, the sound of the water, the touch of the water, and I guess also the taste of the water, on every level, it triggers a certain tainug. It's a very, very special sense of relaxation and delight that people experience in the presence of the water. You go to the ocean, you go to the beach, even when you're looking at a sea, a river, a lake, even a pond, not a leak in your house. I don't know if that's Ma'ir tainug. But mayim is associated with tainug. There's something about mayim. It's true, people who live on the ocean maybe get used to it, maybe get accustomed to it. But I'm not sure. I mean, we get accustomed to everything. Tainug t'midyene tainug. Mayim is associated in machshava, in ashkafa, in Kabbalah, in Chassidus with tainug. It's also the result of intimacy. We spoke many times about mayin nukvin and mayin duchrin. The masculine orgasmic flow and the feminine orgasmic flow is called mayin, the seed of life that comes from the husband during intimacy. That's a form of mayim. And as the Gemara says, ein kishri ela ladas, there's an element of tremendous tainug. It's considered the greatest pleasure in the physical world. It's also associated with that flow of water. And when the child is conceived, when the fetus is conceived, when the seed of life meets the egg and it creates an embryo, that embryo develops within water, within the amniotic sac. And of course we know that most of our planet is comprised of water, and most of our body is made up of water. I think, where's the doctor? 70% of our body is made up of water, 60, 70%. And your blood cells, right? 90%, I think, 90% of the blood cell is made up of water. So water is not just essential to life. Water is associated with the tainug, with the pleasure of life. He says, the reason that mayim produces, it grows all types of tainug. When you look at what water produces, because for anything to grow, water is the essential component. It's the common denominator in all growth. And all the delicacies we have, and of course we're talking about the real delicacies, God's delicacies, the delicious, delicious fruits, which have that unique and excellent combination of sugar together with acid to give it that tarty, delicious flavor, balancing the sweet and the spicy, the sweet and the bitter, where you're talking about a peach, or you're talking about an orange, etc. This is the tainug that Hashem gave people. We say, never mind all the grain from which we also create quite a lot of pleasurable things. So mayim is matzmiach kol minei tainug. It's because they have tainug. You can only give tainug to others if you have tainug in yourself. If you have geshmak, delight in yourself, you can pass it on to others. I can't give you what I don't have. So mayim possesses within it an energy of tainug. For Raki, Hamavdil ben Mayim Elyonim Lamayim Tachtoinim, who are Parsa Shal Yodan Nasis Avdullah. Ben Atanugim Binyanim Aruchna Mayim Elyonim, Betanug Yelam Haza Mayim Tachtoinim. On the first day of creation, there was only one type of water. On day 2, Hashem says, Yirakia Metachas Hashemayim Ve'mavdil ben Mayim Lamayim. Suddenly there is a Parsa. Parsa means a mechitza. Parsa is a masach, a curtain, a veil. Parsa, the Targum, is the translation of masach. It says by the Mishkan, you should have a masach, a veil. The Targum says Parsa. So he says, Rakia HaMavdil is the Parsa. It's the split, which creates a separation between spiritual pleasure and physical pleasure. Suddenly there's something called Mayim Elyonim and Mayim Tachtoinim. Before the Monday of creation, there was only one type of mayim. There was only one definition of tainug. If I would ask you on the first Sunday of creation, if we were having this shir, and I would ask you, what's the definition of pleasure? There was only one definition of pleasure. What was it? Alignment with infinity. The definition of pleasure is the experience of truth, the connection with truth. That was the definition of tainug. Tainug meant you're rooted and you're completely one with the truth and the core of all existence, which is divine infinity. That is the definition of pleasure, because that's the source, the exclusive source of all goodness and all delight and all pleasure. What happens on Monday? There's a split. There's 2 types of mayim. There's mayim elyonim, me'al harakia. And there's mayim tachtoinim, tachas harakia. There's the water above and the water below. And there is a mechitza between them. What does this mean conceptually? There's 2 different definitions of tainug. One is, as he puts it, tainug binyanim ruchnim, and one is tanug elam haza. One definition of tainug is transcendent tainug, the pleasure that comes from transcendence, from connection with infinity, from alignment with divinity. But then there's a different tainug. There's a different type of tainug. Something that may be very material, in which I don't see the connection to infinity at all. But it's certainly triggering a lot of pleasure. It's a lot of I don't have to tell you about the industry of pleasure in the United States of America or any other part of the world. It's one of the most powerful industries, produces trillions of dollars a year in revenue, and gets the best in many of us. These pleasures vary, but the common denominator of these pleasures, it's mayim tachtoinim, it's not mayim elyonim. It's not the tainug that brings me closer to my infinite divine core. It's a tainug that has its own facade. This in and of itself is so pleasurable. It can be a certain image, a certain website. It can be a piece of cheesecake. It can be a bissel covered. A bissel covered. Like tainug. There's so many different types of tanugim. But the common denominator is, you have to ask yourself, is it Maim Tachtoinim or Maim Elyonim? Which tainug is it? Now, are they really separate? Are they really separate? Are they really one? Do they seem separate? What is really going on here? But certainly, something happened on Monday. There's two sets of Maim. What's the objective of this separation? What's the purpose of this Havdalah? Hamavdil. There's a Havdalah. The first Havdalah that the Rebbeinu Shalom made, that gemacht Havdalah. We make Havdalah Mitzvah Shabbos, but the first Havdalah was not Mitzvah Shabbos. The first Havdalah was Monday, Sunday night. What's the purpose of this Havdalah, of this gulf, of this dichotomy created? So he says, through this separation of the lower water from the higher water, the lower water becomes elevated to even a deeper place than it was before the Yerida, before the descent. By the water descending below the heavens, the water experiences a tzimoyin, a craving, a yearning, a pining to ascend. The Zohar has an expression, as you see in footnote 25, Tikkunei Zohar, Tosfos Harash, Rabbeinu Bachayim, Mayim tachtoinim boichen, the lower waters weep, anan be'inin lemeve kademalka, we want to be in the presence of the king. Why have we been relegated to become Mayim tachtoinim under the heaven? That's not fair. Mayim tachtoinim boichen, anan be'inin lemeve kademalka. We want to go back before the king. And famously, what do Chazal say about it? That Hashem promised the water two things. On Sukkot, you know what we're going to do? On Sukkot, we're going to go down to the well and draw water, usha'afta mayim, and bring the water to the Mizbeach and pour the water, the entire Yom Tov of Sukkot, every day in the morning. During sunrise, the Kohen would pour water on the Mizbeach from the wellspring of Shiloach, as discussed in Maseches Sukkah, and this created Simchas Beis HaSheyeva, usha'afta mayim b'sosan. This was God compensating, appeasing the water. The water is weeping. The water here on earth, which was separated from the water above the heaven, is crying. It's not fear. Hashem said, don't worry, on Sukkot, they're going to bring you up to the king. They're going to bring you up to the Mizbeach. The second compensation was, the second thing was, Rabbeinu Bachayim writes this in Vayikra. The second thing was, the Chazal tell us, all karbonos have to have salt. Al kol karboncha takriv melach. The depositing of salt, which is in water, the deposits of salt is another way where the water is elevated and becomes part of every single carbon had to be salted. You weren't allowed to put it on the altar to get consumed in the flames. Reach nichayach l'Hashem, if it was not first salted and salted thoroughly on both sides. Every piece of fat, every piece of meat, the limbs and the organs of the animals, the meal offerings, even if you were burning a flour, it had to be salted. There was even a carbon eitzim. People could sometimes bring a carbon of wood, of lumber. It had to be salted. It's a very interesting halacha. Al kol karboncha takriv melach. Lo sashbis melach me al bris elikecha. Rashi says, what's the bris elikecha? Parshas Vayikra. He says, Hashem made a covenant with the water. The Mayim Tachtoinim were upset. They were hurting. Mayim Tachtoinim Beichen. Hashem said, don't worry. Every carbon is going to have salt. And Sukkos, we're going to pour the water. So what do we see from here? That there was a separation. And this caused the water to cry. The Mayim Tachtoinim. And therefore, he says, the water has a craving, a thirst to go ascend. And through this thirst and yearning, They're elevated to a place that is much deeper than where this water was before the descent. Before the descent of the water under the rakia, the water was beautiful. It was great. It was all mayim al yoinim. It was all higher water. By the water being split up from its colleague, and it becomes now mayim tachtoinim, which we call the lower water, which spiritually and psychologically and emotionally, what does this mean? This represents a different form of pleasure, a different form of tainug. Remember, mayim is tainug. Mayim is pleasure. There's the higher pleasure and there's the lower pleasure. There is the divine pleasure and earthy pleasure. There's transcendent pleasure and there is pleasure that is materialistic in nature. Pleasure that is not rooted in our oneness with divinity. That's called mayim tachtoinim. The mayim tachtoinim cries. And through that yearning, through that pining, it reaches a much deeper place than it was originally. It reaches a place that is even deeper than the higher water. This is the meaning of what the Chazal tell us in Medrash, and it's quoted in Rashi, Bereshis. On the Tuesday of creation, it says twice Kitov. Hashem says twice that he saw that the world was good. Asks the Medrash, why twice on Tuesday? Every other day, it says once. So the Medrash says because Monday was missing a kitov. So that's why Tuesday had to have two kitovs. One was l'meleches hamayim. One kitov is that he saw that the work he did with the water when he split the water was good. And the second one is for what he did on Tuesday, the melachta shel yom. The lechaida, this doesn't seem to make sense. Hadei meleches hamayim u'inyan shel machloikes ve'ich nemen al zeh kitov. Gewaltige question. On Monday, you can't say Kitov. The Medrash Rabbah says, why? Because Machlaikas. Hashem doesn't say Machlaikas is good. Okay, fine. So you don't say Kitov. So what happens Tuesday that suddenly the Machlaikas becomes good? When you made the Machlaikas, it was bad. Tuesday, you're like, nish gefährlich. Machlaikas was good. I don't understand. If the work in the water, splitting the water was a good thing, so then say Kitov on Monday. Say it was good on Monday. Elamai, it wasn't a good thing. Why wasn't it a good thing? Because it was machlaikas. So what happened suddenly on Tuesday that the Monday's work becomes good, and that's why Yom HaShlishi is huchbal by Kitov. That's why Tuesday you have a double Kitov. Very difficult to understand. The answer is the and the answer to this is, and I want you to understand this well, on Monday it's not good. On Tuesday, retroactively, it becomes good. You know why? Because there is the act and there's what you do with it. Monday is not good. Hashem doesn't say Kitov. On Tuesday, something happens that can redefine the significance and the meaning of what happened on Monday. Tuesday, what happens on Tuesday? Tuesday, dry land emerges. Monday, there's no dry land. Everything is water. Tuesday, Hashem says, Yikavu hamayim al makom echad v'seira hayabosha. Let all the waters retreat. Oceans, seas, rivers, lakes, well springs, canals, ponds, puddles. Dry land emerges. What are the conditions for us humans to live on the planet? We need dry land. We can't live in water. You can go into a mikveh, but you can't live in water. We're not fish. We need the living conditions of dry land because a person cannot live in water. So what does Yabasha represent? Creating a habitat for the human race. Adam and Chava would be able to be created. Without Yabasha, we can't live in the water. That's why you have to go you could go in a boat. So Tuesday represents creating a world that becomes a habitat that is conducive, a residence, a home for humanity. So he says through Tuesday. What's Tuesday? Tuesday represents the beginning of the preparation for the avoid of a person. He is going to elevate. He's going to empower. He's going to be mevarer. He's going to sublimate the lower water. ולכן ביום השלישי כשהיו יקבו המים בתחת השמיים על מקום אחד בסירה היבשה, the יבש היא מקום של האדם נשלמה הכוונה דמלאכת המים, Shaydei havdalas mayim tachtonim mayim alyonim v'yiridosam lamatei mis'alim lamayla yoseh. Mikmay shahayu kaidim yiridosam. V'az la'achari shenasis shari is dali yazu gamaleches hamayim hitoiv. On Tuesday, when the possibility was created to ultimately fulfill the purpose for the separation in the water, then retroactively, the Monday is redefined as good. The machloikis itself is of course not good. The mayim tachtoinim are crying. Anan bein elamevi kadamalka. Why would you create this gulf? Why would you create this dichotomy? But on Tuesday, when the possibility was created, it didn't happen yet because there was no man yet. But when the possibility was created for the concept of avodas ha'adam, the human creativity to be able to look at the mayim tachtoinim and to identify the yearning, the void, the absence, the frustration, the tzama lecha nafshi, the kama lecha besari, be'eretz tziyavayev b'limayim, the nichsef v'gam kol sanafshi, the yearning and the pining of the mayim tachtoinim, that I don't want to remain detached. I don't want to be disconnected. I don't want to get stuck in this separateness, because the truth is that everything is one. And the fact that I'm experiencing myself as mayim tachtoinim is really the dichotomy that was created on Monday, where I was distanced from my own source. And the mayim tachtoinim feels the void because it's really attached. It's really one. It feels this void. This creates such a powerful yearning that brings the mayim tachtoinim to a place that's even deeper than the mayim elyonim. As we'll soon see, mayim, we say every morning the pasuk, Baruch Kvoid Hashem Imkaimai. Baruch Kvoid Hashem Imkaimai, the Rebbe used to say, comes from the Shalah. What's the Rosh Hashanah? Baruch Kvoid Hashem Imkaimai? Boichem. Boichem is Baruch Kvoid Hashem Imkaimai. What's the connection? Mayim tachtoinim boichin, anan be'inin lemevi kadamalka. You have to discover the Baruch Kvoid Hashem Mimkaimai from his place. Mimkaimai from his place. The Mayim Tachtoinim cries about this place. Why am I Mayim Tachtoinim? Why do I have to go through this struggle? Why do I have to deal with this? Why do I have to deal with this darkness? Why can't my tainug, my pleasure and delight, l'chatchila, just come from oneness? Come from truth, come from infinity. Why do I have to experience the split in my life, the dichotomy in my life, the conflict in my life, not knowing who I am, not knowing what's going to give me real pleasure? Why is superficiality so attractive, so appealing? Why do the distortions of life allow me to be attracted to things that take me away from myself? You understand this question, Abba Isai? Why are there so many things that are attractive and appealing that take me away from who I really am? That's a big question. If it wouldn't be attractive and appealing, there would be no mayim tachtoinim. Amachaya, mayim tachtoinim boichin. There's a lot of tears, a lot of pain. That's not good. That's machloikas. But you know what happens on Tuesday? Tuesday, there's a new reality. Tuesday, suddenly, now your choice comes in. Now there can be a person who looks at the mayim tachtoinim and says, I'm not going to surrender to the externality of it. I'm going to reveal the purpose of it. The purpose of it is that this tzimayin, this craving, this yearning creates a relationship between you and truth that's deeper than the relationship of the mayim elyonim. Ooh, suddenly it becomes kitayv. Now that the purpose is revealed, the purpose of the Havdalah comes out, is realized through the human choice and how we deal with the Mayim Tachtoinim struggle and frustration. Now the Monday becomes Kitov. Retroactively, you redefine Monday as a good day. When? Only on Tuesday. That's why Tuesday has a double Kitov. One Kitov for the work of Tuesday and one Kitov for the work of Monday. This explains why Korach wanted machlokes. This explains why would Korach want machlokes. Ki Korach chashav. I'm going to take questions in a few minutes. When we finish the actual shir, I'm going to take all the questions. It'll be easier. Why did Korach want machlokes? Ki Korach chashav. Korach thought שהכוון בזה שמים התחתונים נבדלו ממים עליונים וירדו למטה הוא בשביל המיילה שישנה בתענוגים הגשמים עצמם. Korach believed that the reason Hashem separated the lower water from the higher water and the reason they went and descended below is because, listen to this, because of the uniqueness that exists in physical, material pleasure itself. In and of itself, there is something very powerful. The Shoresh HaGashmiyis Ulamayla Yosem Shoresh HaRuchnius. One of the great fundamental teachings in Chassidus Chabad, developed by the Baal HaTanya, based on the teachings, of course, of the Baal Shem Tov, and many sources in Torah, but it's emphasized in the world of Chassidus, is the Shoresh HaGashmius is Lamayla Mishoresh HaRuchnius. The source of Gashmius is deeper than the source of Ruchnius. No. Strange, no? Our whole life, Gashmius is garnish. Ruchnius. But here the Rebbe says, Shoresh HaGashmius is Lamayla Mishoresh HaRuchnius. So one second. What are we teaching everybody? What have we learned our whole life? That Gashmius is inferior to Ruchnius. Ruchnius is spirituality. Gashmius is materialism. But there's something very profound here that we have to understand, and we'll see how it all comes together. In the Shoresh, in the root, Gashmius is deeper than Ruchnius. Al derech hamavur b'Torah. The Baal HaTanya says in Torah, Parshas Va'era, the Ba'olam Masal Yoinim Nemar Magodlo Masacha, V'inyan Marabu Masachu, Ba'olam Masatachtoinim Dafka. David HaMelech has two expressions in Tehillim, Kuf Dalet Barchi Nafshi, Marabu Masacha, Magodlo Masach. We say every morning, Hamer Elias V'adaram Allah Barachamim, Marabu Masacha Hashem, Kulam B'chachma Sisa. Marabu Masach. What does Rabu mean? How many creations you have, the diversity. But there's another mizmer we say on Shabbos, you remember? Tzadik Beis. Mizmer shirli yom HaShabbos, toiv loydis l'Hashem l'zam l'Hashem chelyon, lahagid b'beker chazdecha, v'monoscha b'leilis alei osir, v'alei novel, alei goyim b'chiner, etc. Kismachtani b'falecha, b'maisi yadech haranen, magodlu ma'asecha Hashem ma'idom kumach shuvaisach. What's the difference between Kapitel Tzadik Beis, which you say on Shabbos, and Kapitel Kuf Daled, which we say every day, Marabu Ma'asecha Hashem Kulam B'chachma Asisa, right after Yotzei? So the Baal HaTanya says, Marabu and Magodlu represents two different qualities. Godlu represents quality. Rabu represents quantity. That's the basic difference. Gadlus and Ribui. So he says, by the Olam Masal Yoinim, the higher spiritual worlds, on this David HaMelech said, Magodlu Masacha, how great. On the lower worlds, he said, Marabu Masacha. Why? Because here we see endless diversity, differentiation. You are you and I am I. There's every bush that's self-contained, and every tree and every shrub, every leaf, every twig, every flower, every worm, every mosquito, every squirrel, every bee, every bat, every deer. I'm looking outside. Every deer and every single living and non-living entity, every organism and everything. Ribui. The definition of this world is ribui, diversity. We don't see a oneness. You have to look much deeper to be able to see the common denominator of existence. The deeper science and physics are getting to the source, to the deeper elements. We see the Achdus Habriya. Today, we know that I share 60% of my DNA, I share with a banana. Whoever thought that I look at a banana and I see 50-60% of myself? That's beautiful. And you look at a chimpanzee, and what do you see? You could see 98% of yourself. I don't know if you like to hear that. But that's the Achdus Habriya. It's the Achdus Habriya. It means we're one. because we come from one. As somebody once said, he said, whether you're an atheist or you're not an atheist, you have to agree that the whole world came into being by somebody who was using one dictionary. There was one dictionary that was used for our whole planet. One dictionary, DNA. Basically, one dictionary. There's no separate dictionaries. There's a singular design. But that's the pnimius of the Bria, which we are discovering every year more and more. It's all a preparation for the Geula, when the whole world will be one. But what do we see and what do we feel intuitively? We live in a competitive world. We live in a world of jealousy. We live in a world that if I take care of your needs, then I can't take care of my needs. We live in a world where there's natural conflict. If I take the spot in the parking lot, then you can't take the spot in the parking lot. If I give you the check, that money comes out of my bank account. On every level, there is ribui, there is diversity. There is so many differences and distinctions. That's Olamas HaTachtoinim, Marabu Masach. Olamas Al-Yoinim is Magodlu Masach. Says the Balatanya, V'inyan haribui Meira ala Shleimus de Einsof. And the endless diversity of our world represents the ultimate perfection of Ein Sof, She'imei Yosei Yachid, Hu Noisei Gam Ribui Pratim. That even though God is singular, nonetheless his singularity doesn't exclude the diversity. On the contrary, it encompasses endless diversity. In other words, the endless diversity of our world represents and is a manifestation for the ultimate unity of God. And that's why Sheirish HaGashmiyas is deeper than Sheirish HaRuchnis. Because in Gashmiyas comes out, in Gashmis, there's a deeper achdus that comes out. That's one of the explanations why the Sheirish, why in the essence, physicality is a deeper manifestation of Ein Sof than Ruchnius. Ruchnius is holistic. Ruchnius is oneness. Ruchnius is Magodlu Masach. Gashmius is about differentiation, distinctions. Every physical entity has its space and its rights, and we compete with each other. The law of the jungle is the lions have their territory, the pride has their territory, and the lion, the king, is going to protect that territory. It's not your territory, it's my territory. And even those of us who refine ourselves, so we refine ourselves. But naturally, the world is a place of competitive interests on every level. I have my space, you have your space. I have my needs, you have my needs. And the two chimpanzees may be fighting over the same banana or the same nut. And there may not be enough nuts for everybody. So there's ribui on every level. Comes the Balatanya and says, Olamas al yoinim. There's a sense of harmony, a sense of oneness. They all know that they're created by one source. In Gashmius, you see the real Ein Sof. Real infinity is expressed in infinite diversity. Ribui hayischalkus is an expression of the Mittler Rebbe. Ribui hayischalkus comes from achdus pshuta. There's two types of oneness. There is oneness that is defined by oneness, and then there is oneness that's not defined even by being one. And that's the real Ein Sof. In other words, there's infinity that looks like infinity. And then there's a deeper infinity that doesn't even look like infinity. It's so infinite that it doesn't have even the limitation of being infinite, because infinity can also be a limitation. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Infinity can also be a limitation. Because Hashem is completely one. What do we mean he's one? Not that he has a color, but it's an undefined oneness. So how do you express undefined oneness in the world? Something that's one and it's not defined by anything. How do you express it in a world of definition? And the answer is, you express it in endless diversity. Are you guys typhus what I'm saying or not really? You have two types of oneness. You have a oneness, you say something is one. When we say something is one, it means it has a color, it has a picture, it has a description. You say there's one type, this painting is only one. Eins in the Welt. Eins in the Welt. That's not achdus apshuta. That's not achdus apshuta. That means it's very expensive. You're not going to find another piece of art like this or another diamond like this. Achdus apshuta means It's the only one. It's a oneness that doesn't have a definition. It doesn't have a description. It doesn't have a hagdara. It's absolute infinity. How do we touch this oneness? How do you touch it? How is it manifested? How is it revealed? It's revealed in the opposite way. It's revealed in infinite diversity. The undefined oneness cannot be revealed in one organism, because that just captures a defined reality. Moshe Rabbeinu said, this is very deep. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Leisasa l'chapesa v'chol tmuna." Don't make an image of God. Don't turn God into a fixed image. So God is imageless. Okay, so God has no image. So how can any creature which has an image reflect God? You can't. We all have images. We all have statues. I have a picture. I have a description. I have a resume. So how does an undefined reality manifest itself in the world? The answer, of course, is never in one. It manifests itself in endless diversity. In other words, you have every conceivable image in the world, and each one of them captures something of oneness, not all of it. Kibitzelem elikim asa esa Adam is only Adam and Chava together. Because Hashem has no image. How can man be created in God's image when God doesn't have an image? And the answer is, we become a reflection of God's image when we create space for the other. When you create space for me, when Adam creates space for Chava and Chava creates space for Adam, that's when they become B'Tselem Elokim. It's in the synthesis, in the unity of infinite diversity, where you could capture the undefined oneness. So now when I look at the physical world, I could see two things. From a superficial perspective, I just see a world that's fragmented and divided and completely separated. Absolute machloikas everywhere. The world is based on machloikas. I don't mean here machloikas as a fight. Machloikas, I mean as divisions. And that's how it is. I am I and you are you. On a deeper level, this is the only truth that manifests the true unity of Hashem. The true unity of Hashem is that his achdus is not defined. So because it's not defined, so therefore how is it expressed? It can't be expressed in one picture. It's expressed in the fact that there are endless images. There's endless diversity. There's infinite diversity. And each one reflects the undefined achdus just like the other one. And together we create a jigsaw puzzle that teaches me that my individuality is part of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. But when my individuality connects with your individuality, so the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle come together, so now we capture that achdus hapshuta. So in that sense, the Gashmias, the diversity of Gashmias, represents a deeper unity of the Rebbeinu Shel Olam than the holistic energy of Ruchnias. Korach understood this. And therefore, Korach's taina is, you know why Hashem separated Mayim Tachtonim from Mayim Elyonim? Because of the Mailin Gashmias itself. And that's why he wants that the Gvuras should prevail. Ki zeh shemayim tachtonim boichen anan be'innen. Lemevi kadem malke hu mipnei shenirgish b'ema ilu dinyan hagiluyim chesed yemin. V'kivon shagiluyim in bikir b'olam esel yoinim l'chein mayim atachtonim shein b'em giluyim roitzim lotzis mimitziyusam v'lalas l'mayla. Aval lefi to'usay shel Korach shakavoni b'tamnugim agashmim la'atzmam sheyizgala b'em sheirish agashmias harei adara b'ikir amaylu b'tzimtzumim v'hagvuras shemehem esavim advarim gashmim. I'll explain this in the next shir. It needs some time. I'll explain the next shir. I'm thinking, since it's Parshas Korach, even though I didn't plan it, we'll have a shir tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, Friday, 7:30, Bli Neder will have a shir. We'll continue this. I don't just want to leave you as a mamish in the middle of the suspense of a paragraph. So I'll see you tomorrow morning, 7:30. I'm going to take some questions now. Before I take the questions, I'm just going to remind you that today, 1:30 p.m., we're going to have a Fabrengen in honor of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's yahrzeit today. That's going to be in Hebrew, streamed live on Kikara Shabbater on the yeshiva.net. And 8:30 tonight, you're all welcome for a shir in Likutei Sichos Parshas Korach, a beautiful sich of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Baal HaYelula, on the power of human thought, how your thoughts affect your reality and halacha. in Gemara, in science and psychology, how your mental space affects your reality. That's going to be tonight, 8:30. And tomorrow morning, we'll have our shiur, 7:30 a.m. Let me go to the questions. Okay. So I see the first question is, we spoke that kohanim are the attribute of chesed. Is this an inherent blessing in them? Yeah, it says in Zohar that the souls of kohanim come from the heichal hachesed, from the chamber of kindness and love. This doesn't mean that a kohen doesn't have to work on himself. What it does mean is that the soul of a kohen is specially connected with this realm of chesed, and as you know, sometimes it can even be a greater challenge, because whenever you're connected to something very deep, so the Gemara says, Kol hagadol mechaveira yitzra yagadol himenu. In Maseches Sukkah, when you're greater than somebody, the Yetzer Hara is also greater. So sometimes the zelu umazeh, the opposing force, can also be powerful. So the kohen sometimes has to struggle with it. But this is a gift that's connected to the soul of a kohen. Tumecha v'urecha lish chasidecha. That's why kohenim were given the mitzvah of birchas kohenim. Why were they given the mitzvah to bless Jews? Why were we not given that mitzvah? What's wrong? We can't bless Jews. So we should all bless Jews. Every Jew should bless Jews. But apparently there's something unique in the kohen, and that's because the connection of the kohen to chesed. In terms of the second question, the salt in the water, well, salt obviously is a product of water, and it's found in the waters, and as a result of that, putting salt on the carbon was a way of compensating and appeasing the waters. Now you'll ask, how does that help the water? The fact is that it's becoming a carbon, it's going up to Hashem. The water was crying that it was expelled, it's distant from Hashem, so Hashem said, don't worry, we'll bring you up. By the Nisach HaMayim of Sukkot, pouring the water, the libations on the altar, and becoming part of an offering that goes up to God, this was a way of compensating for the water. I don't see here the website with the comments. If somebody wants to read the comments, because I don't know, it's not coming up here. So if somebody wants to read the comments, okay, I think we'll just stop here now. I'm sorry, I can't go into the webpage to read the comments, but I'll try if there's any questions to respond either tomorrow or in writing, so you could check later or tomorrow. And I wish everybody a beautiful and meaningful and inspiring day. For those who are going to return here 1:30, wonderful. And for those who are going to return here 8:30, wonderful. And for those who are going to return here tomorrow 7:30, we look forward to see you. You should have a very powerful, it's a very, very auspicious day today, a day to be able to connect to the light of the tzaddik, of the Rebbe, and to be able to internalize his teachings and his hashkafas olam and his perspective and his neshama and the oir that he brought into the world. Schus hayagan aleinu, and may we have a meaningful day, an inspiring day, and an uplifting and empowered day. Hatzlacha Rabbe and B'suras Tovos.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.